Leave a modern bicycle out in the rain for a year, and it turns into a heap of red rust. Yet here is a massive iron column standing under the open sky for 16 centuries, heavy rain bouncing off the metal, completely free of corrosion. This 6-ton iron pillar in Delhi is a surviving physical fingerprint of the Gupta Empire, a civilization that ruled over large parts of the Indian subcontinent between the 3rd and 6th century CE. The empire was forged by leaders like Chandragupta I and his grandson Chandragupta II. And to be clear, these rulers belong to an entirely different historical era than Chandragupta Maurya, who lived over 500 years earlier. The metallurgical skills required to cast a rust-proof pillar demonstrate that the Gupta state prioritized long-term engineering and chemical mastery alongside its military goals. To understand how they built a society stable enough to master metallurgy, we have to look at their political blueprints. By reading the carved Sanskrit on the Prayag Prashasti, also known as the Allahabad Pillar, we get a detailed account written by Harisena, a royal court poet. Harisena's inscription presents a very specific official narrative. He describes Emperor Samudragupta expanding the empire through raw military conquest, proudly listing the names of dozens of kings he exterminated and the forest regions he forced to bow. But we have to evaluate our sources. Harisena was an employee directly paid by the emperor. A court poet's job is to make the ruler look as intimidating and heroic as possible, which means we are reading royal propaganda. The historical reality of their expansion relied on a sophisticated tributary system. Instead of spending resources to directly manage every conquered territory, the Guptas allowed defeated regional kings to keep their thrones. In exchange, those local rulers paid steady taxes and pledged their political loyalty. They also bypassed the battlefield entirely by using strategic marriage alliances. When Chandragupta II married his daughter, Prabhavati Gupta, to a prince of the powerful neighboring Vakataka dynasty, he secured his southern borders without a casualty. Armies win individual battles, but are expensive to maintain. By combining indirect rule with calculated diplomacy, the Guptas engineered a vast, financially sustainable political network. That political stability translated directly into immense economic wealth. This physical gold dinar, minted during the Gupta reign, reflects the deep pockets of a thriving economy. By capturing ports like Bharuch and Sopara on the western coast, the Guptas established themselves as primary middlemen for trade with Rome and Southeast Asia. They managed the flow of spices, the trading of fine silk, and the export of ivory, turning these coastal gateways into major revenue streams for the imperial treasury. This animated map shows how those coastal ports connected the empire to the rest of the world. Trade routes flowed freely, linking merchants overland to China and across the Indian Ocean to Southeast Asia and the Mediterranean. We can trace this economic reach all the way to the island of Socotra in the Arabian Sea. Inside the island's caves, archaeologists have found over 200 inscriptions left by ancient Indian sailors, proving this distant outpost functioned as a vital hub where Indian merchants traded directly with the Roman Empire. When a society generates this volume of surplus wealth, the population doesn't have to spend every waking hour focused on basic survival or warfare. That economic security bought the Guptas the free time required to sit down, observe the world, and think. The mathematician Aryabhata formalized the place value system, giving numbers specific values based on position. But this system depends on the invention of the zero. By creating a symbol for an empty place value, they provided the structural logic required for complex equations and large-scale accounting. Aryabhata correctly proposed that the cycle of day and night was not caused by the sky moving, but by the Earth rotating on its axis. Another scholar, Varhimira, continued this work. He accurately tracked planetary movements and predicted eclipses, and even proposed that a natural force attracts objects to the ground, hinting at the concept of gravity centuries before it was formally defined. These scholars were not making ancient guesses. They were developing mathematical proofs and astronomical observations that remain foundational to how we navigate the planet and calculate the universe today. The same environment of stability that allowed science to thrive also fostered a high-output era of Sanskrit literature. With the court providing consistent patronage, master playwrights like Kalidasa were able to refine the language into a sophisticated medium for epic poetry and drama. The empire's wealth also funded profound expressions of spiritual devotion. At sites like the Ajanta caves, artisans spent lifetimes carving massive architectural spaces directly into solid rock, decorating the walls with incredibly detailed paintings. In sculpture centers like Sarnath, artists moved toward a style of balanced proportions and serene expressions. They carved Buddha statues with intricate circular halos and precise meditative postures, creating a distinct visual language that would be emulated across Asia for centuries. Through these stone carvings and meticulously preserved texts, the civilization successfully encoded their cultural values, ensuring their ideas would survive long after their political power faded. This map highlights the limits of even the greatest political structures. By the 6th century CE, repeated military invasions by the Huna tribes from Central Asia steadily fractured the empire's borders and weakened central control. As the Guptas lost their grip, the political map reorganized. Powerful regional dynasties stepped into the vacuum, with the Pallavas consolidating power in the south and the Kamarupa kingdom rising in the northeast. The political borders of the Gupta Empire eventually dissolved. But their discoveries proved to be as durable as the rust-free iron pillars standing in Delhi. The physical kingdom fell, but its intellectual foundation survived. Every time you balance a ledger using a zero, check the date on an accurate calendar, or look up at the rotation of the stars, you are relying on the indestructible legacy of India's classical age.